Hello, everybody. Just wanted to check in. I know it's in the morning, and a lot of you, we did a quick little poll to see who would be able to come to these sporadic lives. And it looks like it's mostly in the afternoon for people. So if you're out there, welcome. And yeah, so there's been some interesting new things that have arisen, and would be kind of fun to share that with everyone. And so we'll just see if anybody shows up. But there's this there was this particular quote that came out of the blue, and it's something along the lines of, during breakfast there is no dinner. It has that colloquial feel to it, a little bit like an idiom. um, but the sense of immediacy becomes absolutely crucial for engaging with the moment, what's present. And it's interesting because there seems to be a nice mixture of what we could call practices, but they have a little bit of an anti-practice feel. So, for instance, there's definitely use to self-inquiry. There's definitely use to meditation, and also digging in a little bit to mindfulness. And a lot of the pointings here are probably an engagement with mindfulness. And you find that mindfulness and meditation, there's a major overlap there. And I suppose we could talk about stillness and say that essentially stillness is full engagement, full awareness of what's happening in the body sensorially, and also complete awareness of thought simultaneously. It has a multifocal feel to it. So anyway, the stepping in, the deeper dive into our sensations, started to realize, working with people, that a lot of people are just not very connected with what they're feeling. And that it's not by accident. It seems like the identity is designed this way to kind of keep us from knowing that, or reconciling or being connected with that. And so the insight that has arisen most recently is deeper diving, especially in the one-on-one context. And a few intuitive things have come up along those lines. It's really about connecting with that particular piece that we can feel right here, right now, that hurts. That question you could ask, what hurts right now? That can be a really powerful pointer, because there is something that we are actively avoiding almost all the time until you know it. And if you can have a sense of that, then you will be really clear on what comes next. It For a lot of us, it feels like a pull. It feels like something magnetic that's kind of yanking us into it. And it makes sense that it's right here at the navel. That's the first place that we experience separation. Before that, we're completely connected with our mothers. And then as we're born, we are literally cut off right there. And it seems like a lot of this deeper stage kind of things that are absolutely pre-verbal. And so if beliefs arise and things like that, they tend not to have much of a storyline to them. The storyline is added later. So essentially, what I'm pointing to is for us to come into contact with a very primitive feeling, sense of being separated. Um, it could even have the tinge of a sense of abandonment. One thing that is very clear is that as things arise for people, they have a sense of being alone in this. Even though that's not the case, it can feel really alone. This deeper stage, stepping in to these sensations. And we've spoken about this before, but that initial awakening is much akin to like a supernova. We expand and we feel vast and expansive. And then it seems like things coalesce again. And for any of you out there who have had that initial awakening, you know that after that big expansiveness, things seem to kind of get a little bit rocky again. And maybe you do have a period of time, and really, I really hope you do. I really hope you had a break from identity and from what seemed like struggle for a while. Some people, it's only a few days. It's just this way. Other people get a few months. I think there was probably 6 months or some really elongated period of honeymoon here, and it was mm, well, it was bittersweet. That's for sure. There was a sense of being done, like yes, I made it. That energy. There was the sense of needing to overshare, and I didn't see it at the time, but Angelo speaks to this too. In fact, I'm not sure if he coined the term, but it's beautiful. It's called Zen stink, and Zen stink is what comes up when there's still some identity there. And sometimes Zen stink can look like I'm better than you. I've had an awakening. I'm better than you. Other times, what it can look like is I don't want to feel alone. And so I want everyone else to wake up around me. And that's how it showed up here. It was like this over exuberant excitement to get everyone involved. You got to do this. You got to do this. You got to meditate. You got to see this. It's the most incredible thing. And in a way, it was kind of stepping on toes. There wasn't a listening present. So anyway, after that initial supernova experience, it started to coalesce again and kind of move this direction. And as it began to kind of coalesce again, it became really clear that there was something really intense and very viscerally kind of felt here. And then it was just dropping and it was right down here. There is no way there can be a guarantee that that's where it will show up for everyone. So please don't fixate on location in the body. It just does seem pretty common, but either way, wherever it's felt, that's where we go. It does seem to have something very core or something very base about it. And it felt like the opposite of a supernova. It felt like I was becoming a singularity. It felt like the entire body, all energy was just being coalesced into this extremely tight, sinking contraction of very intense energy. And it did not want to be touched. I mean, and when I'm talking pre-verbal, I mean, it was just a very like guttural sense of no way, with plenty of language in there that I'll spare you today. But it was like, did not want to know it. And it was obvious that there was no choice. And there was a lot of tears. The body was wrenching. It was pretty intense, but there was also a lot of resistance that really we don't have a choice but to approach layer by layer. There's no shortcut here. That resistance is actually all part of it. Whatever feels like a denial of that experience is all part of it. So really, the reason I'm stepping into this live today and to share with all of you is there was an insight recently about one-on-ones and moving into deeper dives. And obviously, it'll still be meeting everyone exactly where they are, yet there is a sense of being able to help us touch that particular space that we tend to want to avoid, and really getting into that. And I've seen it in very powerful ways in different types of venues, and it's definitely available for all of us. And once we kind of get in touch with that, there's some things that we can do to basically keep our finger on the pulse. And so that seems to be what's coming. And hopefully that'll show up in videos. All of these particular pieces that come out on the channel are intuitive and very spontaneous. There's really no planning. There's a whole bunch of these sticky notes and these note cards here. And most of the time going back through have no clue what what is being written. Sometimes there's some interesting stuff, like this one says, "This has no desire." This one says, "Stillness illuminates the most primitive beliefs." That's actually kind of what we're getting into here, is this pre-verbal belief of being abandoned, this very human experience of being separate, being separated. And it seems to be kind of reified constantly throughout our childhood about, even if we don't really have much of a narrative, we have this sense of maybe being bad or being wrong. And a lot of course, those experiences are being reified by this external aspect of things. and we just don't. We have no clue. We're engaged with this all the time, but it is just absolutely intense. So, if you are all willing to walk along, we'll start doing some deeper dives here, and it it might get a little bit more intense. There won't be a lot of pushing, but I think the nudgings will be a little bit more clear if you're willing to come along. And so, that's been what's coming up. Just really getting into it. You know, I don't really think there's an ability to bypass anything in the sensational space as long as we stay connected and immersed. And I know that there's this other piece that can come up for people. And I've heard this question: well, what about these particular thoughts? Don't I need to look at them and see what they're connected to? And I promise you, no, you don't need to entertain a single thought. Treat it this way: every thought is there to distract you from something being felt. Treat it that way. And I'm not taking a hard stance on that. But if we treat it that way, we are more likely to step into the space that we don't want to look. And that's essentially what shadow work is. Just just the spaces we don't want to look, the things we don't want to see. Mm, it's not all shadow work, but it is. It just doesn't tend to have it just doesn't tend to have a necessary, like a specific process. What we're going to be getting into, for those of you who are willing to deep dive, is basically something that you already know. I mean, and it's actually going to be really clear, but it is interesting. It's like in any of us who have had a glimpse or a first awakening, there can be a sense of forgetting something. And then when we come back in touch with it, it's like, oh yeah, that's how powerful this conceptual space can be, because it's just there to keep you busy. And there's a rhythm, there's a pace, there is literally a an identity there. There is something there that we actually kind of conform to, and then we forget that there's so much more to this experience, so much more to even this human experience. And so maybe, we can walk in the way of, let's get 100% human first, with no fluff. Just go that direction, and then we really start to step in. And tamer, yeah, intense is the way. Yeah, and you brought this up too. It really does seem that at this fundamental space of self knowledge, if you will, and it'll seem that way. Look, of course, ultimately, the experience is that there is no self. But if that is your experience now, that's where we meet you. That's all. Don't We don't need to fixate on it. If there seems to be a self, that's where we go. So this self-knowledge, this sensational space, that seems to be the platform for deeper exploration that really becomes extremely unique for each of us. And I think Tamer mentioned that, that's like the basically the beginning of yoga. Yeah. Okay. However that looks for you, however that looks for anyone. Yeah. I mean, really, that's where we start. So if you're in, I'd love to have you come along on some of these deeper dives, and we'll just see how it goes. It's in the satsang environment and the Q&A environments and things like that. If we do those deeper dives, we're gonna want a lot more support, because I think people are going to start feeling some pretty intense things. And so, and all I mean by that is just, just in setting in the intention of being there and holding space. There is something about having an environment of other people who are witnessing in a very open way that really helps this along, because we definitely can't, we're not doing this alone ever. This is all interconnected. Your awakening is the world's awakening, and you'll start to see really what that means, that underneath the surface of what seems to be identity and communication with other people, there is something else that is absolutely shared. How can it be shared if we're separate? It shows up that way. So, just wanted to bring that to the table for everyone, and just remind everyone that I very much, this is such a wild ride all around, really. And there has been so much value created, being in a community environment that isn't heavily identified. And I'm grateful for everyone to be here in that way. Um, let's let it be what it is and keep it that way. We don't need to We don't need to have a heavy identity here. This is it's just a space of mutual sharing. We could kind of consider it that. So anyway, thank you, everyone. Tamer, appreciate you joining as a member today, and Supersize Good. Thank you. Really do appreciate all your support with that as well. And just so you know, I mean, every penny that goes to the bank account will eventually be distributed to other people who are on the path. So all memberships and ad money on the channel is going to be given away to people that maybe cannot afford one-on-one sessions, or can't afford retreats, so on and so forth. There's a whole variety of different ways we can participate. So, all right, everyone, happy Tuesday. We have this beautiful snowstorm that is just hitting hard right now here. So it's going to be fun to do sessions in the midst of all this energy. All right, really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.